The stark contrast between Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader created an intensely deep divide between the two sides of the very same individual. As a war hero and a beloved Jedi general, Anakin was a noble patriot, while Vader, on the other hand, consumed by anger, vengeance, and grief, descended into one of the most formidable Sith Lords of his generation, one of the most vile individuals in the entire Star Wars mythos. His eventual redemption and forgiveness by his son Luke was the final turning point which allowed Anakin to finally best the monster known as Vader. As Anakin was able to give his son some parting wisdom and the eventual gratitude for ultimately saving his life and allowing him to die in the light, Anakin returned yet again, and Vader vanquished, not by Luke Skywalker, but by Anakin. While Luke was compassionate and more understanding than most, he was not Vader's only child, nor was he the only one from whom Vader sought forgiveness. After figuring out how to manifest himself as a Force ghost, Anakin Skywalker worked towards making amends with his daughter, Princess Leia Organa, and I find their only interaction to be highly intriguing. So how did Leia respond to Anakin reaching out to her? What was her initial reaction upon meeting the ghost of her father, and was she ultimately able to grant him the forgiveness that he sought from her? Well, today, students of the Force, we will answer that very question as we look at a story as of now that exists in Legends continuity, but likely has the potential to expand into Star Wars canon. What was Leia's reaction when Anakin Skywalker's Force ghost reached out to her? It is important to note that Leia and Luke Skywalker's affiliation and relationship with Anakin and Darth Vader was much different. Luke got the opportunity to see the good within Anakin Skywalker when Leia ultimately saw the majority of his bad side. Darth Vader in fact played a major role in destroying her homeworld of Alderaan, and Leia's only interaction with Darth Vader is one of heartbreak and sorrow, while Luke on the other hand never experienced this, and although he held some inherent rage for his father, he always believed that Anakin was there deep down. Upon first meeting the Force ghost of Anakin Skywalker, Leia did not know or recognize this mysterious figure who stood before her, as Leia had never seen the true image of her father. When Anakin appeared to Leia, she walked into her room shortly after the Battle of Endor to find the figure of a long-haired Jedi. This shows just how important it was to Anakin to ultimately reach out to Leia, as it was nearly one of the first things that he did after manifesting as a Force ghost. Here, it took Leia a moment to realize that he wasn't a physical being, but he was instead a Force ghost. Though she had never encountered a Force ghost before, she was able to make the connection based on Luke's former description of Obi-Wan after he had been killed by Vader. And Leia was able to figure out that this person was in fact a Jedi. Anakin's first request to her was not to be afraid, and he approached the situation rather calmly, knowing full well how ultimately Leia viewed Darth Vader and as a result Anakin. The figure then revealed his true identity and identified himself as Anakin Skywalker. But Leia immediately saw him only as Darth Vader, which sent a shiver down her spine. She knew that Darth Vader was dead, and yet he was standing before her. This unease and discomfort immediately heightened her inherent aggression and latent hostility as her fight-or-flight instinct not only kicked in, but was sent into overdrive. Despite her flood of emotions, Anakin remained calm, warning her about her anger and how giving into it was a quick path to the dark side. Leia, however, understandably refused to listen to the spirit of Anakin, passing his teachings aside. Leia, though, understandably refused to listen, and she immediately demanded that Anakin Skywalker leave her presence, automatically replaying the most traumatizing moments that she had endured at the hands of Lord Vader. Although she saw the face of Anakin, this is not who she sensed within the Force. This is not who she knew, as she only ever knew the right hand of the man to perhaps one of the most evil individuals that she had ever met in Sidious. Here, she was face to face with the man who had destroyed the entirety of her homeworld in a mere thought. In just the past 4 years, Vader had tortured not only her, but those that she loved, including Han Solo and several soldiers, not to mention the massacres that he had conducted throughout his career. He was responsible for the entirety of her life falling apart. The death of, in Leia's mind, her true parentage. Leia had no homeworld, no family left, and many of the rebels that she had come to care about had been butchered at the hands of the Empire and Lord Vader. The man responsible for it all had the audacity to present himself to her, and ask for forgiveness. Anakin, though, pleaded with her and attempted to tell her about his final moments, as he recounted the tale of how Luke had saved him from the dark side, but Leia did not care. No matter what Anakin said, Leia simply wasn't having it, despite him begging her to see the redemption from a different point of view, even outright telling her that he had already been forgiven by her brother Luke. What's interesting to note here is that while Luke's relationship with Vader is far more fleshed out, Leia is the twin who is more similar to her father, at least in many respects. Leia shares the same abrasive and aggressive nature as her father did, as the two are natural wartime leaders and confident battlefield tacticians, with an endless supply of charisma and bravery. They are unafraid to leap into action and do the right thing at a moment's notice, regardless of the danger or the consequences. Luke, on the other hand, has a lot of traits similar to that of Padme, choosing democracy instead of violence, and using the Force and his lightsaber as a very last resort. This will lead into why Leia and Anakin's relationship is so much more tumultuous than that of Luke and Vader's, because of the fact that they are very similar. At the end of the conversation, Anakin said that he might not even be able to see Leia again ever, to which Leia replied with only one word, that word being good. For some time afterwards, Leia continued to harbor a deep resentment for Vader and everything that he had done, and understandably so. Vader had taken so much from Leia, and was quite honestly an evil man. He was responsible for the complete genocide of her people, and Leia had made it clear that when they spoke, that Bail Organa was her true father, not Anakin. Ultimately, however, Leia ventured back to Tatooine in order to explore the birthplace of her biological father and the planet where her brother had grown up on. And it was here where she would somewhat change her mind about Vader and Anakin. On the planet, she encountered a journal from the late Shmi Skywalker, her biological grandmother. She read through the pages of the diary, reading about Anakin and what he was like as a young boy before he had been taken under the wing of the Jedi Order. She read about how kind and compassionate he was, and came to learn that his greatest flaw was that he loved too hard. This allowed Leia to finally see the other point of view that Anakin had so desperately wanted her to find, one where she was able to see the tragedy in his corruption, and finally see Darth Vader and Anakin as two separate individuals. It was this single journal by Shmi, her grandmother, that changed her mind. Before Anakin's turn to the dark side, his seduction wasn't caused by an obsession with power or a desire to dominate the galaxy, but it was because of love. Love for his family, and this is something that Leia could connect with. Ultimately, Leia was able to eventually forgive Anakin, though he wasn't present to accept it so far as we know, with this being the only time that Anakin's Force Ghost reached out to Leia. In the end though, there is light at the end of the tunnel as she began to view Vader and Anakin as two separate entities, one who was responsible for her trauma, and one who, although misguided, was ultimately a good man. And again, although their initial and final meeting may not have been up to the standards of Anakin and what he ultimately wished for, in the end, although Leia never met the same level of understanding that Luke did, she did understand more the tale and the tragedy and the separation between Anakin and Vader. But anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this? And what are your thoughts on the only time that Anakin Skywalker's Force Ghost reached out to Leia? What are your thoughts on their conversation and how Leia's viewpoint ultimately shifted from Anakin and Vader? As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching the channel. May the Force be with you, and I hope that you have a great day.